pleasure of speaking to Captain Cynthia Stephenson. We worked together uh, previously at MCOM, and I am really looking forward to our conversation because she was very beneficial in helping me navigate the strategic level of leadership. So, Captain Stephenson, if you could just give us a little bit of your background before we get started.
Okay, so my name is Captain Cynthia Stephenson. I go by Cindy. I've been in the military about 13 years this April. So I started as a 15 Quebec air traffic controller. I did that for just under 3 years. But since I joined, I already had a degree when I joined. I decided to go to OCS and become an officer. So now I'm a senior captain, promotable to major, and currently stationed at Fort Irwin.
Can you describe what does senior captain mean?
That's usually a senior captain is someone who's already completed their key development position, and for logistics captains, that's a company command. So I've completed company command.
Awesome sauce. So over the years or during my career, I've heard people say you just need to play the game. In your words, can you say what playing the game means or if you believe in playing the game?
Sure. Okay, so I don't really like that term, playing the game, because to me, what I do every day is not a game. I think it also perpetuates like a jaded attitude that you are constantly disgruntled about being asked to do things that are not necessarily work related, but they are, they're with your work group. So to me, what most people mean when they say that is that there's going to be times you need to show up and participate even when you don't want to. So I think that's the game that they're referring to. To me, you need to support your team and others even if you don't feel like it. It's part of like the selfless service portion of the Army values. It goes toward that because it's something you don't really want to do, but you're going to do it anyway. So like the reason I think people say play the game is because you don't want to be that person that doesn't show up or participate at events that are ultimately supposed to be team building events. But what many of the disgruntled people that I know call mandatory fun, right? I think that's the game they're talking about. I'm not naturally a social person, but I go to most events because it's the right thing to do, especially like the hail and farewell events. That's one of those play the game. They think that you have to be seen by your commander and you get like brownie points for that. I don't think that's true. I think they do notice whether or not you are supportive of incoming and outgoing personnel, and if you are supportive of other team building events. I don't go to all team building events. I go to a lot, but I pick and choose. Um, since I'm a single person, I typically avoid the ones that are full of family events because that just doesn't hold any interest to me.
And with that being said, what does leadership mean to you professionally, and why do you think leadership has become such a hot topic?
To me, leadership means like being willing to take responsibility for others and for situations and events. It also means like a willingness to make decisions for the good of the whole, and also to accept the consequences that come with those decisions, right? Um, it doesn't have much to do with authority, in my opinion. I think it has more to do with influencing others. I usually kind of advise my subordinate officers to like to ask themselves, can others turn to you for guidance and direction, sort of thing, or do others want to do things the way you do them, or do your actions create loyalty amongst the team? That to me is leadership. And I think it's a hot topic because people are put in positions of leadership based on rank, especially obviously in the Army, but based on rank and seniority necessary instead of like based on experience or work performance or their ability to make ethical decisions or their ability to influence others or maybe even their maturity. Those are things that matter to me in a leader. I think those like qualities like that have more value when deciding who should lead. And there are people, you know, at every rank that absolutely have the right qualities to lead, but there are also people at every rank that have not yet developed, like, you know, the necessary characteristics to lead others successfully. For Let me give you an example. Just about every captain who hasn't done something illegal, immoral, or unethical gets offered a company command. But I will tell you with certainty that there have been many captains I've worked with that should not be company commanders, right? Um, for like one reason or another, and typically it's because they don't have the people skills. I feel they don't have the people skills to take care of others and to get others to follow them. um you need specific skills to so that you don't negatively affect like soldiers' lives just with your poor decision making.
So, as a company commander, what type of qualities, what type of relationship is required to have a good, strong command team to be able to influence soldiers to do the right thing at all times?
I think you have to I think you have to always keep your bearing in front of your soldiers, first of all, both you and your first sergeant. I think you have to never argue or disagree in front of the soldiers. I think if you're going to have a decision to make, you make it behind closed doors. You have your disputes outside of everybody's eyesight. A united front goes a long way toward getting everybody to row the same direction you want to row. I also think you have to find some similarities in your leadership styles, right? So I'm a very forthright person, and I believe strongly in being honest with people and making sure things are fair, providing equal opportunities for soldiers, equal chances to do things. Um, and so I was very fortunate. I had a first sergeant that saw things very much the same way. He would he would help me with my enthusiasm a little because I'd get over enthusiastic about trying to take care of the team and protect my company from like battalion and brigade shenanigans. Um, but we were a good balance for each other because he had the experience and the insight into things I had yet to experience. But I had, I would say, the passion for making things better within the company. So he tempered me in a really good way.
So, what advice would you give to me if I came to you, so I'm a sergeant first class, 4 to 5 years from now, and
So if you are in a first sergeant position and you're having a hard time seeing eye to eye with your company commander, is that the question?
Roger that?
Okay. So I would tell you that you need to sit down and have a conversation right now. I would say you guys need to find the root of the problem. Like why, where is the difference coming from? Is it coming from your personal experience? Is it coming from how you were raised? Is it coming from the fact that, you know, the battalion sergeant major is hammering you for something and your commander's telling you, you know, forget sergeant major, you got to do it my way? Like, what is the root of the problem? And then I would say once you both figure out where you're coming from, then you can trace it back to a place where you agree, right? And you can support each other in a way that makes it harmonious for the whole company. Because when the commander and the first sergeant don't get along, it's going to be a disaster throughout the company.
I think that's some really great advice. So you typically focus on toxic leadership, but we never really talk about toxic subordinates. Um, can you give me an example of how you would see toxic subordinates and give some type of advice out how to someone can do a self-assessment to see if they're a toxic subordinate?
Okay, so I will tell you, I had a sergeant first class within my company that I would consider a toxic subordinate. This NCO never stepped out to lead, right? There were two E7s in that platoon, and he would stay in the background, and he would stand in the formation and whisper negative things about the leadership. He would whisper in the soldiers' ears and stir up trouble. He would blatantly disregard, like following orders, like if we were going to go out to the field, or if we're going to bring all our equipment in for accountability or whatever, he just wouldn't do it. And then he'd tell the soldiers, I don't need to do that. So he's just setting a really bad example, in addition to putting out like a negative message within the formation. And to me, that's toxic, because what does it hurt him to follow, direction and to help with good order and discipline? What is it costing him to just go along with what, you're normally asked to do day to day? It didn't cost him anything, right? In fact, I'd say it was more energy for him to go against what we were saying, to go with us, right? And it was really because he'd reached a point in his career where he was done with the Army. He's just gonna ride it out until he couldn't, and then retire. So I would say that you just need to ask yourself, am I going against the grain because it's the right thing to do, because what they're asking me to do is, immoral, unethical, illegal, or against regulation? Or is it because I just don't agree with them and I just don't want to, right? To me, if you are answering yes because you don't agree or you just don't want to, then more than likely you're being a bit toxic. Because it's not about you. It's not about the commander. It's not about the first sergeant. It's about the team as a whole. Like, what's best for the team? What do you need to show your subordinates or your peers at that moment that makes the team better? If that makes any sense.
So what guidance or advice or, soldier hip pocket training would you give to someone who is in the formation and states that, like the commander and the first sergeant gives out guidance, and then their response is, well, this is dumb. Can you kind of give some insight as to why we have mission orders, where those mission orders come from, and why we have to follow direction?
So, like that's a situation I think we've all come across, where soldiers get told they got to do something and they say, this is dumb. In fact, I'm sure I said it myself as a soldier, and more likely as an officer, right? I guarantee you I've said that this is dumb. The problem is that you're not, as a leader, we have to provide our team. And I say team a lot because that's exactly what it is. Sure, I'm at the head of the team. Yeah, big deal. That just makes me the most responsible person in the formation. The thing is, you got to give people enough information so they understand the why. They got to know, like, what's this contributing to? Is it worthwhile? Like, you don't need to convince them it's worthwhile. They should come to that realization themselves. But if you don't give them enough of the big picture to understand their role in it, then they're going to think it's stupid every single time you tell them to do it. But if you say, hey, I really need you to take, pack up your stuff and take all of it over here, and we're going to go out to the field and we're going to practice this. The reason we're doing this is because blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Hey, we're going to go to NTC and we really don't want the OPFOR to kill us off on day 3 sort of thing. So we're going to come out here, we're going to practice. Or if you say, hey, we got to move all this equipment over there, and the reason we got to do it is because brigade needs this to execute that. Like, they need to know the why. And I think that's, a lot of people like to say that, oh, that's just this generation needs to know. I think everybody has always wanted to know. I just think most people didn't ask up until now, So I think if you put things into perspective and make people feel like what they're doing is value added, I think then they're going to be like, okay, we'll do it. I mean, it's stupid, but we'll do it. You know what I mean?
No, I follow that. What are your thoughts on you should never work for your evaluation? It should take care of itself. And do you think it is healthy for a soldier to ask about their evaluation in advance, or is that like a negative connotation?
No, I think so. I think that the bulk of the responsibility is on the raider and partially on the senior raider. I think that the rated soldier's responsibility is to keep track of what you've done, right? because your rater's also keeping track of what they've done. So I think it's, as you as the rated soldier need to keep, like, accurately track things you've done and give your rater a good solid support form. But what as far as like working for your evaluation, okay, so I think that that phrase "never work for your evaluation," I think that's inaccurate, because quite frankly, we all work for our annual evaluation, truly, because we want it, what we've done to reflect accurately on that piece of paper that everybody looks at when it comes time for promotion. Because everybody up there at HRC, they don't know me. They only know what's on that piece of paper. So I want that piece of paper to reflect accurately what I've done. So I would say that what you should, instead of saying don't work for your evaluation, I think you should say we shouldn't, what we shouldn't do is perform a certain way or create work for others just to fill an evaluation. You know what I mean? That I think would be more accurate in what people are getting after. Because if you commit to making your unit or your team better in any aspect, then you'll have plenty of things to talk about in your support form.
And in your experience as a senior rater, have you ever disagreed with an evaluation, and if so, why?
As a senior rater, no, I have not. I've not disagreed with my subordinates, and I'll tell you, I think the reason for that is because we've discussed that rated soldier enough times, and worked toward improving the deficiencies that we've observed, that we're on the same page by the time that evaluation comes around. It's not going to be a surprise to me. I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had to senior rate too many people, right? Mostly as a company commander, I senior rated, but I knew that NCO. I knew them on a day-to-day basis. And any issues the rater had that needed to, that he or she couldn't resolve, usually they brought them to me and we could talk it out. And the rated soldier, as their senior rater, they're always welcome to come to me, and they often did, if they didn't see eye to eye with their rater. So I already knew the situations. But to be honest, you're not going to find too many let's be real here. You're not going to find too many lieutenants that are going to just slam their NCOs, because they don't have a lot of OER, NCOER experience, right? So they're going to be a little hesitant to go ahead and slam that NCO on an NCOER.
Throughout your career, what would you say would be some common pitfalls soldiers make or fall into when navigating their career?
I think first of all, I think they want to fit in so bad that they adopt some of the bad habits of the soldiers that have been in the unit for many years, right? So we talk about shamming a lot. You got a soldier, usually new soldiers that get to you, they're very enthusiastic. They want to be in the military. They want to do their job. And then they start feeling the atmosphere around them from their peers, especially the salty ones that have been in the unit for many years and haven't promoted or haven't moved on. So they're going to be the most vocal. So I think soldiers develop more sham habits than they should or they could, but at the same time, I think that also falls on the leadership, right? There's no one place you can point your finger in these situations and say, there's your problem, right? Because those soldiers probably wouldn't listen to that negatively speaking peer if the leadership would say, hey, okay, so we're starting the work day at this time. Here's your list of things I want you to get done today before you go home. And when you're done, check in with me, tell me they got done, and go home. Instead, there's so much ambiguity in the workday for the soldier that I think that it's like a enthusiasm crusher. So
Do you
the
think
enthusiasm they've come to you with, go ahead.
Do you think the ambiguity has been self-taught, or is that part of the Army norm? Because there's a lot of.
So I think that it's they've failed to improve on their ability to communicate, right? They're giving limited information. They're not organized enough. And they think that what they have to do is more important than what their soldiers have to do, which upon occasion, that's true. Like the necessity for, what I have to do might outweigh what my soldier has to do. However, that doesn't negate the fact that they still need to be given direction, right? I still need to make sure that they know what's required of them today. I don't want them to show up and then wander around the motor pool because they haven't been told yet what to do. Everybody at every rank likes to know what they got to get done today because they like these they like the structure of it, right? They like to know, okay, I got to be here by this time and I got to get this done and then I got to go home. And this isn't something that I learned in the Army, right? So because I joined late, I didn't join till I was 34. I already had work habits that were not related to the military, right? So I worked as a legal secretary in a law firm. And I knew, I look at my shelf of things I had to do, the attorney bring me a file that has work for me to do on it. He put it on my shelf. I'd look at my shelf and say, okay, how old are these items? How many do I want to knock out today before I go home? Because I got to stay current. That's on me to decide my own schedule. Now, soldiers don't get to decide their own schedule, unfortunately. I think that if they knew what needed to get done, instead of it always being a mystery to them, like, hey, this has to get done, I think they'd probably take more initiative. But because they're constantly left waiting to be told, they lose their enthusiasm to work, right?
So with
and I
that
think
being
it's the
said,
leadership's fault, right? The leadership's fault because they don't communicate. Hey, here's what has to get done today. It doesn't take a lot of time to sit down, jot it down, hand it to your first sergeant or hand it to your platoon sergeant and say, hey, this is what the soldiers got to get done today before they go home. That's all it takes.
when finding yourself in a situation where you don't agree with the direction of the group or the organization?
So I laugh because you know me, right?
Yes.
So that happens a lot because I'm an opinionated person, right?
Yes.
I would say, fortunately, I'm mature enough to know that I'm not always going to get my way, right? Thank God I've come to this realization already, because I'd be suffering a lot of heartache if I hadn't. So I would say, so long as what the group wants to do is not immoral, unethical, illegal, or against regulation, I'll probably row the same direction. But I say probably because it depends on, how much I think I can influence the group to my way of thinking. If I have no chance, I'm going to row. But if I think I have a chance, I'm going to try and sway them to what I want to do.
So what advice would you give
your
to
question?
someone who doesn't have that personal courage to be able to articulate in a candid and tactful way that they don't agree?
Well, I would say you got two choices. Either get used to rowing, or get better at speaking your mind in a respectful, professional way. Practice. You just got to practice on your friends. Practice in the mirror. Like, it takes practice. Leadership, being a leader is like, you don't just know how to do it. You have to practice it. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get at doing it.
Can you talk about Mission Command and the tenets of Mission Command a little bit?
Well, you're taking me back to Captain's Career Course.
By the way,
I know what Mission Command is. I could not possibly tell you all the terms of it. Okay, so in Cindy's words, I would say Mission Command is when a commander utilizes the information at hand, right, to understand the current situation. And then I say information because that's completely different from data, right? His or her staff takes data, turns it into information, and gives it to them so that they can understand the current situation. He or she will then make a decision on how to handle that situation, and then proceed to tell or describe the problem as he or she sees it to the team. So teams shoveling up information commander interprets it, thinks about it, and then returns it to the team, but by describing, hey, this is how I see it. He or she's gonna take their experience, their knowledge, and shape it into like even more detailed information for the team and say, okay, here's the situation as I see it. And then in coming to that realization and being able to describe it back to the team, the commander's got to tell the team, hey, okay, so this is how I see it, and this is how I want it to get resolved, right? This is what, desired end state. This is what I want it to, how I want this to be resolved. So when the commander says, hey, this is how I want this to be resolved, he needs to tell the team, okay, I don't care how you do it. I mean, this is what he should be saying. Shouldn't be like dictating how this has to get done. Should be saying, hey, this is what I want the resolution to be, and these are your right and left limits that you can work within to get it done, right? And then to me, like, that commander's got to provide enough information and guidance to enable his team to work toward achieving that desired end state, even if they can't contact each other, right? So he or she's got to give enough information and guidance so that if I can't call him or her and say, hey, we've come across this problem, what do you want us to do? I should be able to know. I should have enough information and know enough about my commander's, feelings about safety, feelings about, the location, like I should know how my commander operates enough to be able to make a decision without calling them. You know what I mean?
Roger that.
I hope that answered it.
No, it did. That was pretty good.
Okay.
So now I'm going to ask you some personal questions. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Join the Air Force.
That's funny because I took the PT test this morning. Oh my gosh! But anyways,
right? Do some crunches in a 1.5 mile run and call it a day. Yeah, that's what I'd tell myself here.
What is your greatest professional regret?
Probably not joining sooner. Right?
Because
so I'm realizing, like people like to say, oh, this is a young man's game. Well, it's not that. It's just that, you're going to age.
Yeah.
And from what I've experienced, the Army keeps changing the standard. Right?
Yes.
So they keep trying to make this harder for everybody. They keep saying, oh, you got to sit at captain longer. You got to be a major longer. You got to do a harder PT test. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm not getting any younger. So like, I mean, how many years do you think I got in me? So I would say I probably should have joined sooner.
What advice would you give to yourself as a brand new captain, looking back?
As a brand new captain, probably tell myself not to be so hard on my peers. I'm not very nice to my peers. I gotta be honest. You know me. You've known me enough to know I'm not gonna pull my punches. Right? I think that most of that comes from the fact that where I am in my life, I don't have time to dilly-dally or to dance around a subject with you. I'm gonna just tell it to you. If you're screwing up, I'm gonna tell you you're screwing up, and then we'll move on. Right?
Why do you think we spend so much time being offended in the Army instead of just allowing someone to give it to us like it is?
I think people are afraid of honesty. I think they are afraid to hear the honest truth that they don't measure up, right? And so we're always trying to protect people's feelings instead of, and I think typically this is more of a female thing. I got to be honest. It's more of a female thing, and it's more of a, like, males don't know how to deal with females. I can't get a male soldier, a male officer to correct a female's hair. if it's out of rec. I can't get them to do that to save my life. But I will tell you, people don't have thick enough skin. Like, they can't hear critique or criticism. They just don't want to hear it. And I think that other people aren't really good at giving it, right? So I think it's a skill on both sides, the receiving and the giving end, that you have to be able to give criticism at the right time and in the right manner so that people can receive it, process it, and move on.
What's your current mantra right now? Or do you have one?
Lead how you want to be led. That's always been, ever since I became an officer. Lead how you want to be led.
I think that's really good advice. And I know we have to wrap it up because you got to take your COVID test.
Lucky me. You mean my current brain probe? Because I don't know why the Army does it differently than everybody else in the civilian world, but I get brain probed by the Army.
Okay, so my last question, it would be, what has been your greatest lesson over the past decade?
Greatest lesson
Or
over the last decade.
What advice could
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think for both questions, I think I could answer that.
Okay.
And this might sound a little jaded, but I think this is the honest truth, that nobody cares about your life or your career or your dreams or what you want to do more than you do. Nobody cares.
I agree with that.
Which means that you're the only one that can make things happen for yourself. So if you want to get a degree, well, guess what? Take yourself to the education center and start looking into it. If you want to have a career after the Army, well, start gathering up some technical certificates now. But don't expect people to be like, hey, I got this great opportunity, I want to give it to you, because that typically doesn't happen. People are busy running their own lives. So just be proactive in what you want out of life. But remember, don't step on others to get there, because that's just rude. I almost cussed. But that's just rude. Like, it's just not the way to get there.
Yeah, it is. And your greatest life lesson?
Greatest life lesson?
In the past.
Oh, well, that's,
yeah.
I mean, that kind of answers that too. Like, my life lesson was, so I came to this realization long before I joined the Army. I was in college. I think it was junior year of college. And asked me what the year was, because I don't want to die myself out. Anyway, I came to the realization that, like, things aren't just going to come to me. Opportunities aren't just going to come to me. I'm not going to be sitting there and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this great thing came. No, I had to go find it, grab it, and make it mine, right? If I wanted to accomplish it or do it or experience it, I had to go make it happen for myself. And I truly believe if you put your mind to something, you are going to get it. Like, you're going to create situations for yourself where you achieve your goals, you achieve your dreams, and you make your life better for yourself.
Well, this was an awesome experience and a great way to end my Friday afternoon. I want to thank you for being very supportive and taking time out of your schedule to have a conversation with me. It is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'm always here